On behalf of the Department of English and the Department of Sanskrit, we welcome you all. Please be seated, everyone. Thank you. On behalf of the Department of English and the Department of Sanskrit, we welcome you all for this special lecture by Professor Zhen Liu on this topic, Sanskrit Studies in China. Our special dignitaries on the stage, Dr. Bedekar, who is the chairman of Vidya Prasarak Mandal, Principal Dr. Suchitra Naik, our chief guest for this program, Professor Zhen Liu, who is the professor at the National Institute for Advanced Humanistic Studies and director for Center of Gandhian and Indian Studies, Fudan University, China. And we also have Dr. Pramod Karate, the Department of English HOD in our midst. And we welcome all the special dignitaries who have come here from our sister concerns, all the vice principals and other guests, as well as our students here. May I now request our principal, Dr. Suchitra Naik, to welcome our chairman, Dr. Bedekar. I request Bedekar sir to felicitate our chief guest, Professor Zhen Liu. May I now request Professor Pramod Karate to felicitate our principal, Dr. Suchitra Naik. I request Professor Manoj Patarkar to felicitate Pramod Karate, sir. May I now request Manoj sir to felicitate Dr. Nitin Joshi, who is the director at the Bedekar Institute of Management Studies. Dr. Agarkar sir. Sri Vidya madam, who is the principal of our law college. Dr. Apte, who is the retired professor from the Department of Sanskrit, Pune University. We have with us C.A. Barme. Will you please felicitate him, sir? May I now request Professor Madhavi Arekar to felicitate our Vice Principal, Monica Deshpande, Madam. Take 2, 3. I request Madhavi to felicitate Dikshit, Madam, Vice Principal of Junior College. I request Madhavi to felicitate Dr. Vittal Parab. And also felicitate Barse sir, our librarian and coordinator of library science. Thank you. Over to Professor Pramod Karate for the welcome address.
Honorable Chairman of Vidya Prasarak Mandal, Dr. Bedekar, today's chief guest, Dr. Zhen Liu, who is professor at National Institute for Advanced Humanistic Studies and director for Center of Indian and Gandhian Studies at Fudan University, China. Our beloved principal, Dr. Suchitra Naik Madam, dignitaries present in the audience, Dr. Sri Vidya Ma'am, retired professor from University of Pune, Department of Sanskrit, Dr. Prabhakar Apte, CA Shri Sanjeev Brahme sir, Director of BRIMS, Dr. Nitin Joshi sir, Professor Sudhakarji Agarkar, special invitees, Dr. Vittal Parab, vice principals, coordinators, supervisors, heads of the various departments, dear professors, young students of the Department of English and other languages, press and media persons. We welcome our former principal of Joshi College, Dr. Mrs. Shakuntala Singh. It's my proud privilege to welcome you all on behalf of the departments of English and Sanskrit at this very special occasion of a guest lecture that is taking place in this beautiful morning. In the beginning itself, I would like to thank Madam Principal for giving us an opportunity to conduct this guest lecture under the aegis of English Literary Association. At the same time, I would like to congratulate our Honorable Chairman Bedekar sir for having chosen such a wonderful speaker, a young scholar from China, who is going to speak on various subjects including Sanskrit, literature, Indian and the other philosophical aspects. His research specialties range from Chinese, Tibetan and Buddhist literature to Vedic, Sanskrit and Indian literature. So on behalf of the Department of English, we welcome Dr. Jain and the other dignitaries. Friends, Dr. Bedekar sir has been known to us as a knowledge-loving person. And sir, we admire your inquisitiveness and your curiosity and your quest for knowledge and learning. And in the pursuit of that, you have always been bringing some good academicians, thinkers, scientists, researchers among us to enhance and enrich our learning experiences, knowledge and consciousness. So on my behalf, thank you so much for providing such a fantastic aid for us. Literature today has almost become an interdisciplinary field. Whether it is Sanskrit, Marathi or Hindi or let it be any Indian language, we cannot move further without having discussed the language that is Sanskrit language. Sanskrit is the language of India's wisdom, soul. It is one of the oldest and classical languages of India, and that has also served to be the lingua franca of educated people in the ancient and the medieval times. The present lecture is to be delivered by Professor Zhen. He will be speaking on the various aspects. His topic for the discussion is Sanskrit studies in China. But simultaneously, he will also be going to speak on the Indian classical studies in the 20th and 21st centuries in the Chinese context. I am very much excited to listen to him without wasting my time between you and the guest speaker. I welcome you all once again, and thank you so much for coming over here, and I wish you a very happy and quality time. Good day to you.
Thank you so much, sir. I request Madam to give her introductory speech.
Good morning. Honorable Chairman, Dr. Vijay Bedekar, our chief guest today, Zhen Liu, and my colleagues and my dear student friends. As Dr. Karate has already said, I would like to repeat it. We are really indebted to work in and with VPM family under visionary guideship of our chairman, Dr. Vijay Bedekar, because of whom we are able to interact with scholars, international scholars, not only national but international scholars. And I would like to first humbly tell you all that I am neither scholar of Sanskrit nor scholar of critical literary studies. I am student of philosophy. My guide madam is over here. So I'm student of philosophy, but as far as linkages and Asian culture is concerned, I would just like to make a few remarks. Now, last week itself, Professor Mizukami from Japan was here. And when his very elaborate introduction was given, he immediately said, see, Asian mind doesn't like this type of flattering. So I realized that there are certain traits which are Asian traits, and this Asian linkage is perhaps very strong linkage. Whenever we talk of China, the first name which comes to our mind is Huan Chuang, because of whom China and India linkages came in the history, perhaps in the first millennium. Now, after that, another name comes to my mind is Dr. Kotnis, and Zhen sir might be knowing his wife was Chinese, so I think marriage is very sacred in maybe Asian culture, and this is very strong linkage. And we all know Dr. Kotnis' story, how he has served China and Chinese soldiers. Now, yet another, coming to presence. Sir, this is perhaps very typical feminine observation, but we always say way to heart goes through stomach. And if you'll ask today's youngsters, their first favorite food is Chinese food. Here I would like to just narrate one of my observation in Marathi, because in Marathi you can understand it better. Somewhere on the coastal line, I don't remember either Nagotne or Alibag, there was on hotel, there was hoarding saying that इथे अस्सल कोल्हापुरी Chinese खायला मिळेल. So, and I was so amused. I think what happens in political history, that is one happening, but what happens at popular cultural level is quite different. And this linkage, sir, I need not tell you, is very, very strong between China and India. So much so that very authentic Indian food items, dosas, and maybe anything is today mixed with noodles and Chinese food. So that is one thing. Another thing which I would like to mention, yet again must be very popular character with all your youngsters. And I think all mothers have been very irritated and all youngsters have been friends to that character, and that is Shin-Chan. So again, I feel, see, when popularistic culture is influenced by some ideas, the linkages need to be studied and highlighted. So, the old philosophical way of Buddhism. Buddhism went first to China and Thane, chant. Okay, his name also resembles something similar. Then it went to become Japan and it became Zen Buddhism. But I think basically it is nothing but Asian wisdom. It is all about what symbols we choose, what symbols we select, and what symbols we give importance. Do we give importance only to political realities or these cultural ties? And I think this is one very good initiative taken by VPM and Dr. Vijay Bedekar sir to strengthen these linkages which are taking world and Asia towards peace and not towards war. So with these few remarks and with best wishes to our guest, since he's translating Rigveda in Chinese language, oldest literature of the world, so I give my greetings to the gathering as well as to all the guests who are present over here. Good luck for this program and enjoy it thoroughly. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, madam. It's indeed our privilege to have Dr. Shakuntala A. Singh, former principal of Joshi Bedekar College, and also Alpana Babat in our presence. Welcome you both, madam. May I now request Dr. Manoj Patarkar to introduce our chief guest, Professor Zhen Liu.
A hearty good morning to all the dignitaries on the dais and off the dais, my colleagues and student friends. I'm extremely happy to introduce today's speaker, Professor Zhen Liu, who is currently a professor in the National Institute of Advanced Humanistic Studies and director of the Center for Gandhian and Indian Studies at Fujian University, China. In the brief time, I would only be able to touch upon certain highlights of his illustrious academic career. In 2001, he completed his master's with a thesis on Maitreya Vyakarana, a comparison of the different versions with the translations of the Sanskrit text. Professor Liu then studied Indology, Tibetology, and Sinology at the University of Munich, Germany from 2001 to 2008. In the same year, he received his PhD with a dissertation on meditation and asceticism, a new Sanskrit source for the Buddha legend. He has numerous publications to his credit based on topics related to Sanskrit literature, Vedic literature, and Buddhist texts. He's translating Rigveda and various Buddhist texts. He has been a visiting scholar. Only last year he was there at Harvard Yenching Institute. He has received various honors such as Bavaria State Scholarship in Germany and Shanghai Outstanding Achievements in Philosophy and Social Sciences Awards in China. His research specialties are Veda and Vedic literature, comparisons between Chinese and Indian literature, Indian Mahayana and Hinayana Buddhism, comparisons of Indian, Tibetan, and Chinese Buddhist documents, Sanskrit manuscripts, and also Indian and Central Asian art. I'm extremely happy to introduce Professor Liu. Over to Professor Liu.
Yeah, you can. Yeah, good morning. At first, I will express my thankfulness for the hospitality of Dr. Bedekar sir, and who host me and invite me here. And I have this opportunity to exchange thought and mind with you. And also, I will thank for your attendance, especially by many honorable persons at this university. And I have seen, yeah, today there is a very big audience, and the biggest during my Indian visiting. Yeah, thank you very much. So I will begin with my lecture. And at first, yeah, this photo was made in the year 1957. At that time, there was the honeymoon between India and honeymoon, yeah, between India and China. Yeah, only after 5 years later, then something happened. And just a question before my lecture. Yeah, do you know what is this photo about? Yeah, a drama, a very famous Indian drama, and played by Chinese actors. Which kind of drama? Which drama? Yeah, 小空岛了. This is 小空塔了 in Chinese version. Yeah. Yeah. About the background, I will mention later. Okay. Then you can go to the next page. Yeah, next slide. The classic Indian study, as we know, the history. Just a moment. Yeah, before my lecture, I will define the term classic Indian study. It is included within a term Indology. According to Wiki English, Indology or South Asia Studies is the academic study of the history and cultures, languages, and literature of Indian, and as such in a subset of Asian studies. The classical Indian study will be limited before modern time, and non-humanity studies are also ruled out. According to Wiki German, the start point of the modern European Indology was in the 18th century. So the Indian studies, namely these in the framework of Indian Buddhist text translation in ancient China, will be out of my focus too. In this lecture, I will report the modern classical Indian study, which began from the 20th century. As we know, the history of Indian Buddhist text translation to China started in the 2nd century CE, and according to the recent research, ended in the 14th century CE, namely later Yuan and the early Ming dynasty. After that, there was a 5 centuries break. As the classical Indian studies came to China again, its discipline switched already from ancient to modern, although the research object didn't change. Finally, my lecture will only report these Chinese Indologists wherever they live or lived and work or worked, even though some of them have or had citizenship other than Chinese, and those foreigners who work or worked in China. The concept of China includes mainland China, Tibet, Hong Kong, and Taiwan. Although there were a lot of great scholars like Orlstein, Paul period, swing heading, Otani, Goizui, Otani, Serge Oldenburg, Albert Greenwald, Albert von Lecoq, Louis Finot, and so on. Active in expedition in China, they are not regarded as Indologists in China, since they did not work for any Chinese institution. The first Indologists in China, before that, I will show you. Yes, this is the present location of Indian Indology in China, according to the academic principle in China. Now, we divide humanity into three parts: history, philosophy, and literature. And under history is religion studies. Under philosophy, is religion studies. And under religion studies is Buddhist studies. Then is Indology. This is the division according to our government. Okay. The next. And the next. Yes. The first Indologist in China, therefore, is Baron Alexander von Steil-Holstein. And that person is just appear in the cover of a book. I could not find the more clear photo of him. In 1900, he gained his doctorate with his dissertation, The Karma Parapataka from the University of Halle, Wittenberg. The supervisor of his dissertation was the famous German Indologist Richard Pischer. During the following years, Baron von Steil-Holstein traveled widely and studied with the best Oriental scholars in Germany, England, and India. He started his academic career in 1909 when he was appointed assistant professor of Sanskrit in the University of St. Petersburg and the member of the Russian Committee for Exploration of Central and Eastern Asia. In 1912, he visited the US and lived in Harvard for some time to study Sanskrit. Then there was a Bolshevik revolution. Due to escaping from this revolution, he got the Estonian citizenship. Then he stayed in Peking. And he was recommended by his friend from Hong Kong, Charles Eliot, and invited by a famous Chinese historian, Hu Shi, to teach Sanskrit, Tibetan, and history of Indian religion in the Peking University as a lecturer from 1918 to 1921, and as professor from 1922 to 1929. He helped set up the Sino-Indian Institute in Peking in 1927. In 1928, he was a visiting scholar in Harvard, helping the Harvard Yanjing Institute to collect books. In Harvard Yanjing Library, there is still kept his drafts, letters, and other materials. Next. Some name. besides his work on Indian and Tibetan religions, he also contributed to the field of historical Chinese phonology. His influential work, the phonetic transcriptions of Sanskrit works and ancient Chinese pronunciation, was translated by Hu Shi into Chinese. And next, his selected works. Next slide. Yes. Yeah, you can look at some of his works, and the most famous one is the Kashyapa Parivata from Ratnakuta, published in Shanghai. And since he became a professor at Peking University, the modern classical Indian study has been established in China. Before 1949, he is the most influential Indologist in China. Hu Shi and Yin Kechun, famous Chinese historians, learned Sanskrit from him. There were two young students in his class, Dao Quanyu and Li Guangling. Next. Who became great scholars later. Yeah, this is his draft kept in Harvard Yanjing Library. Okay, next. Yeah, I can. Yeah, okay. Okay, this button. Okay. Yeah, okay. Just next. Yes. Yeah, he is Dao Quanyu. He is the founder of Chinese Tibetology. And the latter is an Indologist, Li Guangling. I will introduce him later. Only because we had von Steil-Holstein, the Chinese publication on Indian studies reached world-class level. There was another German, German scholar, Walter Liebenthal. He was a German philosopher and a sinologist who specialized in Chinese Buddhism. He translated many philosophical works from Pali, Sanskrit, and especially from Chinese into German. And in 1934, he obtained an appointment as a research fellow at the Sino-Indian Institute of Yanjing University in Peking. At that time, there were two famous universities in Peking. One is Yanjing University, established by Americans, and the other is Peking University. And the first was destroyed by the Communist Party after 1949. Over the next 2 years, he prepared a Chinese Sanskrit index to Kashyapa Parivata. Yeah, the same work, but unfortunately, it was lost during in 1937 occupation of Peking by Japanese forces. In 1937, he joined Peking University as a lecturer in Sanskrit and German, and followed it into his successful wartime sieges in Changsha and Kunming. Then in 1952, he left Peking and moved to Vishvabharati University of Shantiniketa in India, established by Rabindranath Tagore. First as a senior research fellow, and later as a professor and director of the Department of Sino-Indian Studies until he became emeritus in 1959. It is worthy to mention that the third foreign scholar worked in China is Prabodh Chandra Bakshi. He was one of the most notable Sino-Indologists of the 20th century. In the 1920s, he studied in France with Sylvain Lévy, Paul Pelliot, Anthony Milliet, and so on. In 1945, the government of India created a chair for professorship at Peking University to promote Sino-India understanding and cultural ties. And Prabodh Chandra Bakshi was selected for this prestigious post for a period of 2 years. Yeah, here is the list of his some of his works. China has his own Indologists only since Li Guangling and Xianling Ji. Li Guangling was a pupil and assistant of von Holstein. He learned Sanskrit and Tibetan from von Holstein and complied Chinese-Tibetan word index of Kashyapa Parivata. Unfortunately, it was not being published. The manuscript is regarded as lost. Maybe that manuscript kept in Harvard Yanjing Library is the first draft of that index. In 1933, he went to France. Sylvain Lévy was his supervisor. After that, Lévy passed away. Louis Lenoir took over Lévy's task. Lin edited a Nepalese manuscript of Dhamma Samuchaya and picked up the verses from there to reconstruct its Mula Sutra, its Mula text, namely the Saddharma Smrityupastana Sutra. At that time, the letter was regarded as lost, but now again appears in Tibet. With the help of Chinese translation and Tibetan translation, he reconstructed the lost Sanskrit text successfully. Finally, his huge dissertation was published in 4 volumes and is always indispensable for Nikaya, namely the Buddhist schools or sex studies. Unfortunately, he worked too hard and suffered with health and hunger during the Second World War. He could not survive shortly before the liberation of Paris. Despite of his short lifespan, without doubt, he is the most influential Chinese Indologist in the field of Buddhist study. Then the next. Xianling Ji is the greatest Chinese Indologist in China. In 1930, he was admitted to Tsinghua University as a major in Western literature. In 1935, he went to University of Göttingen in Germany as an exchange student. Chosen in 1936 to major in Sanskrit under Professor Ernst Waldschmidt. Yes. Yeah, here's Professor Waldschmidt was a German Orientalist and Indologist. He was a specialist on Buddhist, Sanskrit manuscript, and archaeology of India and Central Asia. Besides Ji, he has a lot of outstanding students like Klaus Janert, Dieter Schringloff, Herbert Herter, George von Simpson, Laurie Sander, Valentina Stark-Lawson. Yes, I just show you the stemma of our school. Our school, yes. Yeah, the grandfather is Ernst Waldschmidt. He has many students. One of them is Xianling Ji, and the other one of them is Dieter Schlingloff. And Dieter Schlingloff has an intellect student, Jens Uwe Hartmann. He is my supervisor. Yeah, it's me here. And Qianling Ji has also many students, and yeah, Han Yanfu, Feng Hinyuba, Qing Duan, and so on. Yeah, they have also their own students. And the second one, Ji received his PhD in 1941 with his dissertation, the conjugation of the finite verbs in the gathas of Mahavastu. And then studied Toharian and Emil Sieg. Yeah, he is Emil Sieg. Emil Sieg is a founder of German Toharian study and a Vedist. He is also the teacher of Waldschmidt. During his abiding in Germany, he published 2 articles. This is parallel versions to the Toharian recension of Punyavanta Jataka. And the second one is the changing of the ending am in o and in Middle Indic. Both are still regarded as important works in Toharian and Middle Indic studies. In 1946, he returned to China, becoming a professor at Peking University, and began a long career as one of Chinese most well-known scholars of ancient Indian languages and culture. Soon after his arrival, Ji founded the Department of East Languages at Peking University and was helped with working on developing it by Ke Mu Jing. He became dean of the department and pioneered the field of Eastern studies in China. Eastern studies is Oriental studies in China. After 1949, he engaged himself mostly in the popularization of Indian literature. He translated Panchatantra, Abhijnana Shakuntala, just that drama, Vikramavur Vashiya, and Dasha Kumara Charita, partially into Chinese, but without text comparison and research annotations. According to the ideology of the CCP, even a scholar has to do some works for the peasants and the workers. Those incomprehensible academic work look like guilty. The drama Shakuntala, in its Chinese version, was based on his text. He wrote also a series of articles to criticize Franklin Edgerton and Heinz Beschert. One of the reasons was, according to his point of view, that they represent imperialism. In his entire life, he still believed that Pali is an Eastern Indian language. Now, yeah, everyone knows Pali is a Western language. During his period, under the supervision of him and Ke Mu Jing, China has the first bachelor students of Indian studies. Many of them become the backbone of Indian studies after Cultural Revolution. At the beginning of the Cultural Revolution, namely from 1966 to 1976. He took part in actively and was defeated by his opponent. He was driven away from the academic chair and forced to work as a janitor. However, he secretly translated the Ramayana from Sanskrit into Chinese, retaining the poetic format, risking the punishment which befalls those convicted as intellectuals. In 1978, Ji became vice president of Peking University and director of the Chinese Academy of Science Research Institute on South Asia. He also served as a chairman of various professional organizations, including the Chinese Foreign Language Association, the Chinese South Asian Association, and the Chinese Language Society. During this period of his career, Ji published many academic books and over 200 papers in more than 10 academic fields, including Chinese cultural research, comparative literature, and Sanskrit. In 1998, he published fragments of the Tokharian Maitreya Smriti Nartaka of the Xinjiang Museum with Werner Winter and Georg Jean Pinot. In addition to his translation of the Ramayana, Ji wrote 7 books, including an annotated edition of Xuanzang's Xi Yu Ji, and a short history of Indian, and a history of Chinese sugar cane, or cane sugar. On January 28, 28, the government of India announced that Ji had been awarded the Padma Bhushan, the first time it was awarded to a Chinese person. After the Cultural Revolution, he has his own MA and PhD students. Most of them became senior professors at Peking University or world-famous scholars. Then the second one. But besides Ji, Mu Jing is an Indologist who studies in India. In 1935, he started to write poems and novels. In his early years, he had different careers as a librarian, newspaper editor, and foreign language teacher. In 1941, he went to India and studied ancient Indian literature, Buddhism, philosophy by Acharya Dhammananda Damoda Kosambi, father of the faith, Kosambi, and father of the famous historian Didi Kosambi, and returned to China in 1946. At the time, he was one of few scholars in China who knew Sanskrit and Pali language. In 1946, the Department of Oriental Languages and Literature was established in Peking University. Mu Jing joined in 1948. He and Ji Xianling Ji together contributed in developing the Department of Oriental Languages and Literature. And his works is a history of Sanskrit literature, Bhatrihari Shatakaptraya, Meghadutta, Panini's Ashtadhyayin, but only first chapter, some hymns of Rig Veda. He began the project of translation of Mahabharata. There are still two Indologists who studied in Indian. The first one is him, Fan Chenxu. He translated 50 of the Upanishads into classic Chinese. He also translated Nietzsche's also Sprache Zarathustra, Kalidasa's Meghaduta, and several of Sri Aurobindo's works into Chinese. From 1945 to 1978, he studied and taught in India, thus escaping the Cultural Revolution. He lived in Pondicherry from 1951 to 1978 in the Sri Aurobindo Ashrama. After returning to China, he worked as a researcher in the Research Institute of World Religions of Chinese Academy of Social Science. This is CASS, Chinese Academy of Social Science. He translated prolifically various Sanskrit classics were introduced by him. And the second person, Bai Hui-Wu, studied at Department of Philosophy of Vishva-Bharati University in Shantiniketa and also in Pune University. His research aspect is Vedanta philosophy. He also translated some hymns of Rig Veda. The students of Ji and Jin, although the both masters didn't exchange more than 100 sentences during their lives, still have the shaping of that time period, namely from 1949 to 1978, even after the Cultural Revolution, namely what they mainly to do is to introduce Indian literature to the public. Zhong Xinjiang, he is the best Sanskritist in this generation. He was a researcher at Chinese Academy of Social Science and took over Sanskrit courses at Peking University too, as Jin and Ji were already over 70. In the 90s, the salary of university staffs in China was lower than the average level. A lot of scholars escaped from their institutions. Without Jiang's preserving the classical Indian studies would be broken at Peking University. It is worthy to note that at that time, Jiang was the only one who cooperated with Western scholars. In China, these are his works. In China, the study on Sanskrit manuscripts found in Tibetan began with him. And some remarkable works by him. And the second person is Bao Shenhuang, is an expert of Indian caviar literature. He was graduated from the Department of Oriental Languages at Peking University in 1965. Ke Mu Jing was his main teacher. He was a researcher at the Institute of Foreign Literature in the Graduate School of CASS. He is also the president of China Foreign Literature Society and of the India Literature Research Institute. A project to translate Mahabharata into Chinese was started in 1989 by Ke Mu Jing and Guo Hua Zhao, and with many Chinese scholars. But it was broken until in 1996, under the leadership of Bao Shenhuang, who was then the director of the Institute of Foreign Literary Studies at CASS. Then, 5-member team completed the translation of all 18 paravas in 2002 to 2003. After further revisions by Huang and proofreading, it was published in 6 volumes in December 2005. You can see the cover of the Chinese translation of Mahabharata. And further works by him is Classic Poetics of India. He translated partially Kumara Sambhava, and also Upanishads, Bhagavad Gita, and text comparison of Vimalakirti Nirdesha, Vajratedika, Lalita Vistara. And he got awards as President's Certificate of Honor from India. And also in 2015, he got Padma Shri from India. And this is his wife, Professor Liang Yunguo. She is a Pali expert, and she translated Sutta Nipata. After Cultural Revolution, Ji began to have his own MA and PhD students. Some of them stayed in China by Ji, but some of them went abroad to continue their promotion. And you have seen that picture of Ji, this one. This is his first visiting back to Göttingen in Germany shortly after Cultural Revolution. And he met his master, his guru, Waldschmidt again. Then after that, he started to send his own students to Germany. Yeah, therefore, there are 2 groups of Indologists. One is studying Western, and the other remained in China to do popularization of Indian literature. And his first student after Cultural Revolution is Bang Wei Wang, and his famous work is Buddhist Nikayas Through Ancient Chinese Eyes, published in Germany, and also an annotated critical edition of Nanhai Neifa Ji Gui Zhuan by another famous Chinese pilgrim, Yi Jing, after Xuanzang. Yeah, he is very famous. And Nanhai Neifa Ji Gui Zhuan, the meaning of the title is a record of the Buddhist religion as practiced in India and the Malaya archipelago. And the second one is Hai Yan Hu Fengting Yuba, because she married a famous Pali expert in Germany, Oskar Fengting Yuba. She promoted in Göttingen by Heinz Beschert, a Chinese-German scholar at the University of Freiburg, expert of Middle Indic Buddhism and Jainism. And most important works of her is the Poshadavastu from Vinaya of Mula Saravasti Vadins, and Sambhoga. This is a definition between Jainism and Buddhism. Professor Hu is the most outstanding Chinese scholar at present. And yeah, he is my German colleague at Fudan University, and he is an expert of Indian logic, mathematics, and also Western logic. Qing Duan, promoted in Hamburg by an Iranist, Emmerich, and her dissertation is about a Cantonese Amitabha Sutra. And she came back to Peking University in 1987. And with her book, Introduction to Paninese Grammar, 2001, she became a professor and director of Research Institute of Sanskrit Manuscripts and Buddhist Literature. The photocopy of Sanskrit manuscripts formerly they kept in the ethnic palace. The newly discovered manuscript from Central Asia, now kept in the National Library of Peking, are in the hand of Peking University, and she and her disciples published some of these manuscripts. And I don't know if you can later I will show you. Then she also is the director of the Chinese translation of Pali Tripitaka. Now the first one, Bedekar Nikaya, has been published. And in that period, there are still 3 scholars. Yeah, one is him, Jun Jiechu, graduated from Central Ethnic University and promoted from Vienna. And his dissertation is Jinyenda Brudi's explanation to Dignaga's definition of acknowledgement tools and perception. And Zhao Luo graduated from CASS. He went to Tibet under the command of Xianling Ji to catalog the Sanskrit manuscripts, which were returned to Potala Palace from the ethnic palace in Peking. Yeah, just a short history about this huge mountain of manuscripts. Yeah, at first, after 1959, these manuscripts were gathered from the Chinese government, taken from Tibet to Peking, and kept in the ethnic palace. And after Cultural Revolution, the 10th Panchen Lama came to Peking and requested these manuscripts back to Lhasa. And at that moment, in 1980s, they were in Potala. All the manuscripts, almost all the manuscripts were in Potala. Then now, again, distributed back to the various monasteries. But the Tibetan or Chinese government has already taken photos of the manuscript and published secretly. There's no access for scholars, foreign scholars, also for the scholars like me, no chance. But at that time, Zhao Luo, he was able to behold all the manuscripts. This is very lucky for him. And he make a catalog. Although it is still primitive, I can show you. here, and not free from mistake. This is the only witness of the huge treasure, even up to now. Unfortunately, he hadn't transliterated or transcribed any manuscript, any text. Now he became very regretful, but no chance for him. In the 20th century, a lot of scholars in the next generation have grown up alongside the discovery, or rather access, of the Sanskrit manuscripts in Tibet. Then other scholar, Jing Sun, MA student of Bai Hui Wu, that person who studied in Pune, and Jing Sun is his disciple, PhD student of Sengaku Maeda at Tokyo University, research at CASS, like his teacher, he is a Vedanta expert. From Peking University, there are several outstanding young scholars. Can you, yeah, this is the title for the, can you open these links? No internet? Okay, I just, read their name. Sarji, Shao Yongye, and Mu Youfan. They published several books on this manuscript, either from this ethnic palace or from the National Library in Peking. And the latter one kept the new discovered manuscript from Central Asia. But both for us, the scholars outside Peking is are not accessible. And besides Peking University, they have some copies of this Tibetan manuscript, and the Chinese Tibetology Research Center, they have all the copies of the entire copies of the whole manuscript kept in Tibet, and there is a cooperation project between Chinese Tibetology Research Center and the Austral Academy of Science, and there has been a lot of publications. Under these there are several publications by Chinese scholar Hong Luo, Xue Li. And I have also one book within this theory. Unfortunately, I cannot open the links. But you can see the photos of the books. And there were several scholars who financed their overseas studies by themselves. I mean, these scholars I just mentioned in Peking, their studies are basically at Peking University, and were only aboard in the framework of exchange program for a short period, but paid either by the foreign government or by Chinese government. But there are still some people who study by themselves, or who financed by themselves. You can also find my name. I just Yeah, I just escaped from my former job and to Germany and financed by myself. And we have known the Sanskrit manuscript of Diyogagama belong to Sarvastivadin was one of the greatest discoveries at the beginning of this century. And three Chinese scholars took part in this project. Yeah, you can find Li Xiangzhang. She was my classmate, and Shankara and Chun Yang Zhou. He was at University Göttingen. Then he worked at University of Hamburg as a Yogacara expert. His topic was Kaivarting, and this is mine. Is about Kaya Bhavana in Munich. Then later, I'm employed at Fudan University. And there are also Shen Li. He studied in U.S. University of Wisconsin Medicine. A study of the concept and uses of sculpture in classical Indian Buddhism. Yeah, Chandrakirti's Agama and channeling. Yeah, he is about Hari Varma's Tattva City from University of Washington, Seattle. Since I came back to Shanghai, a team of classical Indian studies has been formed gradually. That is to say, if I was not employed in Shanghai, there was Indology only in Peking, and only from the school of Peking University. Yeah, this is my Sanskrit class. Yeah, in this semester. Yeah. Yeah, I just say I just use the marketing skill. Now, under the name of the Center of Gandhi and Indian Studies, we have Shen Li, expert of Chandrakirti and Kavya literature, and Eberhard Guhe. You have seen his photo, the German colleague of us. The works of Eberhard Guhe is a German Sanskrit textbook, and also published in English in Shanghai, Mahesha Chandra Nyaya Ratna's Brief Notes on the Modern Nyaya System of Philosophy and its Technical Terms. And then, unfortunately, I cannot open these links. I will introduce the situation in Hong Kong, but the main person is Dharma Jyoti, Venerable Bhikkhu Dharma Jyoti, and he is a Malaysia Chinese, and he is expert of Sarvastivada Abhidhamma, and he also has published a Sanskrit textbook, and this textbook is used at Pune University, Pali and Buddhism Study Department, and also about the Chinese version of Dhammapada. Yeah, and he is the editor-chief of Journal of Buddhist Studies, a very famous, remarkable journal, and something about Taiwan. And the most outstanding institution is Dharma Drum Mountain in Taiwan. And German monk, Bhikkhu Analayo, and he is now, he was in Damazhou Mountain, and now in University of Hamburg, become professor, and he makes comparison of the Nikayas or Agamas, different Nikayas and Agamas, and within Sanskrit, Pali, Tibetan, and Chinese texts. And Bhikkhuni from Italy, Bhikkhuni Damadina, she still works at Damazhou, and she is also an expert of Khotanese text. And also study Pali, Sanskrit, Tibetan, and Chinese. And the second institution is Foshan University. And Professor Yuk Mei Chung, she is also Chinese, Malaysia Chinese. Yeah, it is very amazing that in Malaysia there are so many Chinese scholars who study on classic Indian, and very remarkable. And she is the student of Professor Lambert Schmidhausen, the greatest Yogacara expert in the world. And her dissertation is also about Prajna Paramita and the definition of Shunyata. And I haven't her photograph. Vinita Zhen is a Taiwanese nun, and her specialty is Pali. Her Pali is very good, and she also published a book about several Mahayana texts found in Tibet, also in that theory which I mentioned. And Professor Poki Huang, and in China, or in Taiwan, or in Hong Kong, the most Indologists are on Buddhist studies, but Pochi Huang is on Jainism and Hindu study. He was the pupil of Michael Witzel, Professor Witzel at Harvard University, and he is the chairman of Taiwan Indological Society. The reason why he becomes the chairman of this society, because Taiwan Indological Society is very poor. It lacks money, and Pochi Huang, Professor Huang, is very rich. He is the richest Indologist in Taiwan. Therefore, the only possibility is let him become chairman. And he is always the chairman. Yeah, chairman forever. So, come to my conclusion. If we have to give some comments to the development of classical Indian studies in China, perhaps there will be in the following sentences. First, the classical Indian studies in China have been always limited within the Buddhist studies. The reasons are: 1, the cultural interaction between India and China has a very long history, but only or mainly in the framework of Buddhist mission and pilgrimage. Second, there has been a complete Chinese Buddhist Tripitaka. To do Indian studies, it is easy for Chinese to start with Buddhist texts in Chinese. Third, Recently, there are plenty of new material found in Tibet and Central Asia. Most of them are Buddhist texts. Then the second point, to do a research relying or living on new material is a shortcut for a scholar to reach a prestigious level. The Chinese scholars like to choose this more traveled path. Comparing to these scholars before 1949, they didn't escape from the already edited material and surveyed them with text comparison again. Since the huge mountain of new materials stands in front of the new generation, I haven't seen any trace that the young Chinese scholars, especially from Peking, can resist the temptation and pay attention to the content of the old materials. Third point, there are still a lot of gaps in the classical Indian studies in China. For example, Vedic, Jainist, Hindu studies, and so on. Even in Buddhist studies, inscription, numismatic, plastic, plaquette, art history studies are missing. We need the tradition from other schools or disciplines than the Walt Schmidt's school or Xianlingji's school. Even the art history study of Walt Schmidt's school hasn't been transmitted down to Xianlingji. Even the Toharian studies of Xianlingji hasn't been transmitted down to his disciples. Fortunately, from the newest generation, we can find some buds of the flourishing future of the classical Indian studies in China. None from Peking University. You can look at. Yeah, the first one is he hadn't used the new material, just used the old extant material. And the second one is, I think is a very good academic paper for Indian art history. And the third one is on Toharian studies. Okay, that is my lecture. Thank you very much.
I would like to make one observation. He has already given the picture of Shakuntala written by Kalidasa. And Kalidasa is known for his romantic descriptions. So after King Dushyanta visited Shakuntala, he was returning in his chariot. And Kalidasa says, Gacchati puras shariram dhavati paschat asamsthitam chetaha. He says, my body is traveling towards my capital, but my restless mind is dragging me back towards Shakuntala. And for that, he selects a Chinese product. And what is that? He says, the flag fluttering on my chariot is, the cloth of the flag is Chinese silk. Chinau shukamiva ketoho Prativatam Niyamanasya. That flag staff is going forward, but the cloth is fluttering backwards. Chinamshuka, that is Chinese silk. So, Kalidasa, whatever it may be, about 1600 or 1700 years back. So, China was sending silk cloth to India, and Shakuntala's King Dushyanta has chosen it for preparing his flag. So this you may use for your next lecture. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir, for that great observation there. I would like to thank so much Professor Zhen Liu for. Are there any more questions from anyone? We'll have our discussion. We can take at least 2 questions, not more than that. Yes.
I'm just curious, sir, to know what attracts students towards Indian and Sanskrit studies in China. What appeals to them when they join the courses?
Yes, I think the concept of Sanskrit for Chinese is always a very prestigious idea, and to learn Sanskrit, even in the history, in the past, we also regard it as a very higher ranking academic activity. And the second reason, I think, according to the Chinese government, and they just took over the Soviet Union's system, and such kind of philology and linguistic study was pressed down. Yeah, not like it's different from before 1949. Therefore, we Chinese always have a very great demand to learn a classic language, and it also happened for Latin course, for old Greek course, and many attendances to this class. And even in Shanghai, and Shanghai, you know, is a very commercial city, and I think since 1,000 years, we don't have any class for ancient languages, and also for Sanskrit. Therefore, we are starving for learning Sanskrit, for learning Sanskrit.
Hello. Sir, I have 2-3 questions, small questions to you. One is, Sanskrit is same as Fanwen. For Chinese, Sanskrit is same as Fanwen. Yes. Is it? And another thing is, during the time of Yuan Chong or Faiyan, this classical period, were there any Pali scholars in China? Pali scholars, Pali, those who had, probably Huan Sang or Faiyan and Itzing had not learned Pali. And the third one is, I have come across a reference where a Loyang scholar says that he had learned 36 North Indian languages. So, are there any references to our Prakrit languages of ancient age other than Sanskrit? These are the 3 questions I wanted to ask you, sir. Thank you.
Yeah, three are very good questions. Yeah. Then I have to spend a little bit more time to answer his question. The first one is Fan Wen. Yeah. For Sanskrit, Fan is Brahmi. Brahmi, Brahman. Wen is script. And yeah, you know, Indian language script are different. Language, script is script. But in China, Chinese language and script are the same thing. Therefore, we already we are already confused with the two concepts, script and language. As Xuanzang was in India, he found this is a language, Sanskrit, but he identified Sanskrit language with Brahmi script. You know, we can also use Kharosthi script to write Sanskrit, but he didn't know. Then he used this concept, Brahmi script, and transmitted wrongly into Brahmi language. Therefore, we have this concept, Fan Wen. Yeah. And this concept also transmitted to Japan. The Japanese also use the same concept. It's wrong, totally wrong. And the second question is Pali scholars. Yeah, now as I showed you, yeah, at present we have Pali scholars. In the past, maybe there were, because the most Chinese Tripitaka, Buddhist Tripitaka were translated from Sanskrit and also Gandhari. But Gandhari, this is the first stage of our early translation. But there are few texts maybe transmitted at that time in Pali. This is Sammata Prasadika, and also studied by Professor Bapat in Bandaka Institute. And according to his opinions, this text was in Pali. Therefore, it is an evidence that we had Pali scholars, or maybe scholars from South India. And the third question, yeah, besides Sanskrit, yeah, I just mentioned Gandhari is definitely, yeah, was transmitted in China, and maybe also some Central Asia languages like Toharian, Sogdian, but the other practiced language or Middle Indic language, we don't have evidence.
Hello. Hello. Sir, I want to know what marketing skill you have used in your classroom for so many Sanskrit students.
Yeah, it is. I think it is. It should be secrecy, but I have to. I have to tell you when you ask me. I knew. We have notes or credit system at our university. And if the note lower than B minus, a student has no chance to get a scholarship. So I give them the lowest note is my B minus, It is very easy to get B minus in my course, but very difficult to get A. Very, very strictly for the good students, very, very low. Very, very slight for the bad students. This is my skill.
Okay, just one clarification. There's so much of emphasis on language, grammar, linguistic analysis, translations have been done, and to some extent, Upanishads, Gita, Mahabharata, all this. There is one strong thought in Indian philosophy, that is Tarka, Tarka Shastra. Right from Gautama, Gangesha till Naminyaya, not much attention has been given to Tarka Shastra by Chinese. Is there any reason?
You are right, yeah. Yeah, yeah, as we know, there are 6 philosophical schools in India. But as native Chinese, they are mainly only focused on Vedanta, and only a little bit on Sankhya. Now, yeah, there is a tendency on yoga, and but for Nyaya, only this German guy, and he up to now he hadn't established a tradition, Nyaya tradition in China. Just he does his own work, Nyaya. Yeah, I hope in the future we can study all the 6 darshanas.
Thank you so much, Professor Zhen Liu, for enlightening us with your intellectual and scholarly acumen on the Indology studies in China. And as teachers and academicians, I think we are humbled, at the same time glad to understand that so much of a voluminous work has been done on ancient Indian text in China, and it was really encouraging to see that large classroom of Sanskrit studies also. May I now request Dr. Vijay Bedekar, the chairman of Vidya Prasarak Mandal, to give his concluding remarks.
At the outset, let me thank you also. Well, friends, I only can say that you must have realized by this time that what he was narrating in his early part of his lecture, that many Germans they have studied Sanskrit and they went to China, and Sanskrit literature and many other things were mostly studied through German scholars in China. Now India is a big country, and I can tell you, you can correct me, as he has said, there are huge number of manuscripts, Tibetan manuscripts now. And in India also, Lokesh Chandra had collected huge manuscripts, and they are in Patna library. They are in Tibetan language, some of them are in Chinese, and some of them are in Central Asian scripts. They are Sanskrit manuscripts, but written in Tocharian or many other scripts. There is a huge potential in studying these languages. And as Madam has pointed out, it's true that it's more tilted towards Buddhism and allied subjects. I know that there are lots of medical manuscripts also have been studied now, those who got translated into Tibetan and Central Asian languages, and now they are again getting translated into English. So one message is that we Indians don't study languages. We have a language department here where we teach Japanese, French, German, and I think we had three batches of Chinese. We had 3 batches of Chinese also, but they don't go for advanced Chinese. Now, it's my humble request to all of you that you really want to delve deep into our culture. You will have to learn any classical language, I can tell you. And once you learn one language, then you can migrate from that language to other languages and learn what our culture was. Friends, with this few words, last Monday we had a Japanese scholar who spoke in fluent Hindi. Today he informed you about Sanskrit studies in China. And next Monday, or I think in 15th of this month, we have one more scholar from New Zealand, and she is going to speak on the history of Indian mathematics, so probably on Bhaskaracharya and his literature. So with these few words, we are interested. We want you to get connected to this language studies, but you will have to show interest and take interest in language studies also. With these few remarks, I thank him also, and I hope we will get more such scholars for interaction. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir, for that concluding remarks. May I now request HOD of the Sanskrit Department, Professor Swati Balero, to propose the vote of thanks.
धन्यवाद. नमो नमः. सर्वेभ्यः शुभमाध्याह्नः. विद्वान् सर्वत्र पूज्यते. एषा उक्ति महोदयने सार्थकीकृता अस्ति. एवं संस्कृतभाषा विश्वमनोज्ञा अस्ति इति अपि वयम् अधुना अनुभूतवन्तः. चाइनादेशे अस्माकं भारतस्य पौराणिकशास्त्रस्य अनेके विद्वांसः अभ्यासः कृतवन्तः इति वयं महोदयस्य भाषणेन ज्ञातवन्तः. महोदय, भवतः संस्कृतकक्षायाम् अस्माकं कक्षा अपेक्षया अपि इतोपि छात्राः सन्ति इति सत्यमेव अभिमानास्पदमेव. अद्यतनस्य कार्यक्रमस्य प्रमुख अतिथि प्राध्यापक झेन् ल्यू महोदयेन अस्मान् विश्वमनोज्ञायाः अमृतवाण्याः गभीर्यं स्वस्य धाराप्रवाहिता भाषया उद्बोधितमस्ति. अतः विद्या प्रसारक मण्डलस्य जोशी बेडेकर कलावाणिज्यमहाविद्यालयस्य सर्वे प्राध्यापकाः छात्राः च तेभ्यः बहु अनुरागिणः सन्ति. अनेके धन्यवादाः महोदय. विद्या प्रसारक मण्डलस्य अध्यक्ष डॉक्टर विजय बेडेकर महोदय बहुवारम् अस्मान् सर्वान् कृते महान् विद्वांसः अत्र आहूय तेभ्यः ज्ञानदानयज्ञ कतिवारं कुर्वन्ति. एवं तेषां कारणेन एव वयं कतिपयवारं ज्ञानीजनानां भाषणेन विश्वभ्रमन्ति एव कृतवन्तः इति वदामः चेत् तत्र अतिशयोक्ति नास्ति. अतः अहं डॉक्टर बेडेकर महोदयस्य बहु अनुरागिणी अस्मि. अस्माकं महाविद्यालयस्य प्राचार्या डॉक्टर सुचित्रा नाइक महोदया एषः कार्यक्रमः यशस्वी कर्तुम् अस्मान् प्रत्येकं समयं साहाय्यं कृतवती. अतः तस्याः अपि अहं बहु धन्यवादां ददामि. अस्माकं महाविद्यालयस्य उपप्राचार्य प्राध्यापक सुभाष शिंदे महोदय, उपप्राचार्या मोनिका देशपांडे महोदया, कनिष्ठ महाविद्यालयस्य उपप्राचार्या संगीता दीक्षित महोदया, समन्वयक प्राध्यापक टीजे शर्मा महोदय, ग्रंथपाल श्री नारायण बारसे महोदय, एतेषां सर्वेषाम् अहम् अनुरागिणी अस्मि. अद्यतनस्य ज्ञानयज्ञे सहभागिनः सन्ति विधिमहाविद्यालयस्य प्राचार्या डॉक्टर श्री विद्या महोदया, डॉक्टर आप्टे महोदय, डॉक्टर नितिन जोशी महोदय, डॉक्टर सुधाकर आगरकर महोदय, श्री विठ्ठल परब महोदय, माजी प्राचार्या डॉक्टर शकुंतला सिंह एवं डॉक्टर कल्पना बापट महोदया. एतान् सर्वान् बहु धन्यवादान् ददामि. अस्माकं छात्राणां विना एषः कार्यक्रमः शक्य एव नास्ति. अतः ते सर्वे अत्र आगत्य एकचित्तेन कार्यक्रमः श्रुतवन्तः. अतः सर्वेषां मम प्रिय छात्रान् अनेकान् धन्यवादान् दत्वा अनुरागं प्रदर्शयामि. सर्वे प्राध्यापकेभ्यः वृन्देभ्यः अहम् अनुरागिणी अस्मि. पुनश्च एकवारं सर्वेभ्यः अनेके धन्यवादाः. विरमामि च. धन्यवाद.
एक पुस्तिक